what would you say is a strong call to action for the people listening? Like, what technology can they think about creating? What do you think that they should be trying to accomplish?
Well, look, the problem isn't technological in the most part; it's political. Okay, let me say that I have great optimism. I was going to say faith, but I don't like that word. I have great
Okay.
optimism about our ability to do technology and to address and mediate a number of these problems. It's why I think it's irresponsible to say the world is going to, as some people on the left have done, say that if we don't do anything now in 20 years, our children will be dead. I just don't think that's fair to say.
Mm,
Um, we can do a lot. And of course, there are technologies, solar technology. There are carbon they're not carbon free because it costs money to produce them, and it costs energy to produce them and carbon in production of them. But
right.
but there are more or less carbon neutral production technologies like solar power, which are becoming cheaper, more efficient, etc. So obviously, those things are going to be used just because people are going to vote with their dollar, with their pocketbooks. As solar energy becomes cheaper than coal energy, it'll be more used. Of course, the problem is then one of battery technology, because the sun is shining only half the day. Not, here in Oregon, it's not always much of the day at all. But but and so you have to figure out ways to store that energy, and that's currently an issue. And improving battery technology is a real area where technological innovation is required. But there are other ways, of course, that are important, and one is conservation. One is just
Mm,
simply not using as much energy, and that's been
true.
true for 30 years. And I remember someone I know named Avery Lovins has been pointing out that it's a lot cheaper to save. At the time he pointed out, and I hope it's changed, that in skyscrapers, 50% of the air conditioning load, at least, maybe more, was used to just take away the excess heat produced by lighting.
Wow.
Oh
And
my
so if you
God.
did it more simply, you could avoid that. So those kind of being smarter in design of buildings is important. But a lot of carbon is produced by transportation and some of it by agriculture. So we can look at those things. Um, so there, but we can also look at energy technologies that exist that don't produce carbon, and one of them is nuclear power, which had a bad rap, but is not. But really, in terms of the number of people who've ever died, it's small compared to coal power. And so, although people are afraid of the word radioactivity, the nuclear power definitely should not be should be part of the equation. And it's unfortunate in parts of the states that people are trying to close down nuclear power plants when in fact they shouldn't be. Okay,
Right.
because of things that have happened in the past, from Three Mile to Fukushima to Chernobyl.
Chernobyl. Yeah.
Hmm.
But you can ask how many people still. It's debatable. I think it's still, even if you take the worst figures for how many people may have died as a result of Chernobyl, and some people would argue it's very few at all. Um, but even if you take the worst figures, it's still small, I think, compared to the number of people who died due to coal burning, due to pollution and coal burning. So,
Hmm.
so you want to, there's no silver bullet. You want to do a lot of different things, each of which can help contribute to making us a carbon neutral world. And I think we should be doing all of those. At the
Hmm.
same time, as I say, I think what we need to also look is an infrastructure to helping the third world um, first of all, deal with the effects of climate change, and also come up. They want to be energy users as much as we are, because that energy correlates to wealth in some sense in the world, and they
Right.
have every right to do that. And so we need to help them do that in an efficient way.
Mm.
So it's a lot of little things. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
and 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 what we can, and if you feel daunted as a human being, well, you can look at your own carbon footprint. Yeah, you can look at how to reduce it. One of the ways I would argue is to have fewer children. But the probably reducing your own footprint is one thing. But if that feels hopeless to you, one thing you can do is educate yourself about the
Yeah.
issues. We all have soapboxes, because governments, as I've often said, and I've said 1,000 times in the last few weeks, they don't lead, they follow. And that means, if the public is motivated, governments are going to follow regardless, whether they're a dictatorship or democracy. And the one bit of hope I may have, if I have hope on the good days, is that generationally, young people seem to accept that human-induced climate change is real,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and gives me hope in the sense that gay marriage gave me hope. That 20 years ago, I would have thought I'd never see that gay marriage wouldn't be legal.
Yeah.
But because people, my daughter's generation, that knew gay people, it was no big deal for them. I knew it didn't matter what older senators or Supreme Court justices did. It was done. And as I said to you earlier, physics proceeds one funeral at a time. The world proceeds many funerals at a time. And if young people view this as a big issue, then you can be reasonably assured, one would hope, that's going to mean in a generation there can be activity. And so, and we're already seeing it in some sense, with the shift from the last administration of the United States to the current administration, you're already seeing a shift. But once again, I worry, even in the current administration, about people who have a religious belief in climate change versus a empirical belief. The religious belief starts talking about doomsday and apocalypse, and I think that is wrong because it turns people off. When you say, look, when you say that 100 million people are going to be dead in 10 years and it doesn't happen, what does it mean? Then the rest of the people become skeptical, the boy who cried wolf. And so we have to keep grounded in reality, and that's why I produced a book just on the science rather than the policy. There are lots of policies one can talk about, but we at least have to be straight on the science before we can have rational public policy. And and people can use, this is written for the skeptics, but also for the people who want to have arguments, that they can, not arguments when they have literal arguments, but when they want to talk to their neighbors, their friends, their family, their congregation, their children,
Yeah, it creates a foundation for where that debate can start when you have the facts. And one thing I love about you is that you spent this past weekend, we're recording here on Monday, March 8th, and you spent this past weekend signing over 500 copies for each member of Congress just to get the fact out. So I appreciate
we're trying,
your work.
and it's not free. I run a nonprofit foundation, the Origins Project Foundation, which does run the Origins podcast, and did run a public lecture I gave on the subject recently. And so we're trying to raise money. It's a tax-free foundation to be able to do this. So there's the buying of the books. By the way, I'm foregoing my royalties in those in case people are wondering if this is some money making free. And then there's the mailing, packaging, etc. And so we do have a GoFundMe, which is sort of a little more than half filled now, to try and do that. And we're going to do it one way or another in the next few weeks. I was just getting, in fact, my mailing labels for Congress today.
Nice.
And we're doing it because we hope that it'll have an impact. Yeah. Anyway,
that's wonderful.
Not lobbying. Once again, it's not lobbying for Democrats or Republican or for a specific policy. It's just saying, hey, here, maybe you or your staffers might learn something from this.
Exactly.